We're back to do it all over again. Welcome to round 9 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship, the second of our double-header races here in Tokyo. Well, yesterday was a nightmare with rain plaguing everything and red flags in the races, but it was Stoffel van Dorn victorious. What are we going to get as the track has largely now dried out and getting ready to go? Well, welcome to practice 3 here on JB Motorsports and Formula E Zone. Let's join the world feed to find out.
Equally as big a challenge. We've seen some cars moving around there. There's a change of asphalt in the middle and a few white lines to play with. Very tight chicane 10-11. On the exit of 15, you do have a very long run down to a modified part of the circuit. There was a chicane, turn 16, which is no longer there. Fast corner, turn 16 now. Huge challenge, drops down into turn 17 and 18.
Yeah, it certainly does. That completes a lap then of the Tokyo E-Prix circuit then here this weekend. No pit boost to worry about here today. The rain and wind of yesterday now gone, replaced with heat and humidity. It is very, very warm and very humid. 25 degrees track temperature, 27 degrees air temperature, but look at the humidity, 72%. It feels a lot warmer than it actually is.
It does, feels a bit like a sauna out here at the moment. Yeah. At 7 AM, quite impressive.
Stark contrast to what we had 24 hours ago, where drivers were complaining of their cars ending up like jacuzzis with the strong weather that we had here yesterday. So Stoffel van Dorn, as we said, became a victor for the first time in 49 races here yesterday. Great performance from him, Katie. He did get quite fortunate with the pit boost and how that all worked out. So essentially, if you missed the E-Prix yesterday, we had a red flag in the race due to Max Günther's car breaking down. Stoffel had made his pit stop just prior to that red flag period, which meant that when he restarted the race, though he was at the back of the grid, everybody else in front had a pit stop to do, so he had a net like 30-40 second lead.
He did, but also starting down in P14, you've got to try something. And as he said, it was a really bold strategy. They executed it perfectly, using a lot of energy in the beginning and going for attack mode to use even more energy, so they got that window earlier to go into the pit boost.
No doubt about it. So drivers then in the pit lane, 40-minute session about to get underway as the green light comes on. Free practice 3 here in Tokyo is now go. The cars will filter out onto the track for their first dry session since Friday afternoon. This is going to be absolutely critical for the teams and the drivers, given the lack of dry running that we've had so far this weekend, to get those cars set up ahead of qualifying, which is not too far in the future after the end of this session.
Well, no, it's going to be a massive challenge for them because the tyre temperature window is going to be so different. The way the tyres come in with this high temperature that we've got today, the way that they progress throughout the lap, getting that right is going to be the key to getting those one laps in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Oliver Rowland exiting out onto the track for Nissan, increased his championship lead up to 60 points here yesterday. Finished in second place and sounded a bit disappointed on the team radio, but he knows that there was a chance of victory that slipped through his fingers, essentially, courtesy of the strategy call that was made by Maserati MSG.
There was nothing anyone could do to cover off Stoffel van Dorn and Maserati MSG. It was a beautiful strategy, as Katie said, very bold, but that was really what we've seen with this pit boost. There's so many opportunities now, and it's very exciting for us to see these opportunities play out. And you know, I have to take my hat off to MSG and Maserati for being able to pull that one off.
Yeah, there's some disappointment for some other drivers as well, namely Jake Dennis. He ended up retiring, being disqualified, as a matter of fact, from the race yesterday. So after the red flag was thrown, we had a safety car restart, then we had a standing start. At the end of the safety car period, Dennis came in to make his pit boost stop, but the pit lane was actually closed. However, there's some confusion around the whole situation. What happened, James?
So I think there's a bit of confusion around the wording. So the pit lane, or the pit entry itself, was actually closed. The pit lane was open, as the cars have to come out of their garages into the pit lane. And then the FIA can control the pit entry and the pit exit. The pit entry was closed at that point. I think that was where the miscommunication was, or the lack of clarity, let's say. And I'm not surprised. I think in the commentary booth, you know, Andre and I and yourself were also discussing what the right thing to do was in that situation. Now, it was a fairly harsh penalty, but it's one that had to be issued out, because any other penalty, he still would have gained a sporting advantage. So therefore, I can understand the FIA's penalty, and yeah, it may seem very harsh, but unfortunately, that's what happens when you take a bit of a gamble and you get it wrong.
Yeah, really disappointing for Andretti as well, given the disappointments that they've suffered so far this season. I mean, they were on the back foot really going into that race, Katie, because qualifying being cancelled meant that they were 21st and 22nd on the grid. I think it's one of the worst qualifying that we've seen from Andretti.
It was, but I think that, you know, as a lot of teams were yesterday, they weren't expecting the free practice results to be the qualifying results, or at least they weren't expecting the qualifying to be cancelled, because, you know, they were saying that they were trying a lot of different setups, they were coming in and out of the garage, whereas other teams were obviously out there, and their strategies, as Nissan and Mahindra both said, that they've been working towards strategies of treating free practice 1 and 2 like qualifying and trying to put together fast laps so that if that did happen, then they would be starting on pole. So yeah, I think a few teams were caught out with that yesterday.
Mitch Evans as well, he'll be hoping for some vengeance today. He was clobbered into during the race, ended up in the wall on the exit of turn 2, which damaged the gearbox, and he ended up having his second retirement of season 11.
That was a really harsh move from, you know, Nick de Vries was coming out of the pit lane. Mitch Evans was on track. He has priority because he's on the racing circuit, and unfortunately there was contact between the front left of de Vries and the rear right of Mitch Evans, and that sent him spinning into the wall. The impact was pretty high, and yeah, as you said, it's damaged his gearbox casing, which is a huge difficulty for Jaguar to overcome to replace that.
Yeah, de Vries was given a penalty post-race, which dropped him down to 11th in the checkered flag. The upshot is that promoted Nick Cassidy into the points as well. He had something of an interesting race because practice results determining the grid for the race essentially meant that he started right down the order, but he was quite close up to the back of Robin Fries at the end of that one, and we were wondering if any penalties were going to occur, and so they did, and he's managed to sneak in there and get a point.
Well, Nick Cassidy also did a tyre change in the pit stop. I don't know if we missed that on live yesterday, but yeah, I had a chat with him yesterday, and after he changed his tyres and he had his correct tyre pressures and everything, he went out and set quite a few fastest laps of the race, I think.
Just keep prepping. We start working hard on brakes and macro.
So listening there to Stoffel Van Dorn and his team radio, so the most recent winner in Formula E, just trying to work the tyres and work the brakes to make sure that everything is in the right operating window as he makes his way through turn 9. This is down into turns 10 and 11.
So what he's doing there, you can hear the brakes going on, and he's trying to heat up the front brakes to get thermal temperature to dissipate into the rims of the front wheels, which then in turn heats the air inside the front wheels and heats the tyre. And he wants to do that to match the front and rear axle, because it's very easy to heat up the rear tyres. You just accelerate, you get wheel spin, you get slip, but with the front tyres it's much more difficult. So that's what he's trying to do, he's trying to balance the front and rear temperatures. Fairly aggressive approach, actually.
So is this something that you would do on your outlap then, if you think towards the dual stages? Is that what the kind of techniques that they're doing?
That's exactly what they're trying to do, Katie. They're trying to learn as much as they can about how to get the tyres in the right window as quickly as possible, because when you get to the dual phase, you've got only an outlap to get your tyres in the right window to nail that one shot.
He's slowing down like crazy. Yeah, Grassy behind, careful. I don't know, Jeff was maybe on a fast prep for the first half of the lap. Then there's a big gap behind Di Grassi now. Da Costa is in T13, 10 seconds.
Really aggressive with the lock inputs that he's putting into the car to try and get that front tyre temperature up, isn't he, going through this first sector?
I've not seen anyone do this for a while. Antonio Felix da Costa used to really do this a lot in the previous generation of car, but I've seen less people doing it in this car.
Yeah, the tyre window is so sensitive with these hand cooks in particular. Drivers have really struggled with it over the last couple of seasons to make sure that the tyres are in that window, and if they're out of it, they've just got no grip at all.
Well, here's the man they should all be copying when it comes to tyre preparation, Oliver Rowland.
Yeah, he seems to, whatever he touches turns to gold. I know I've used that cliche quite a lot over the last couple of weekends, but it seems to be true. He's got his daughter and his partner here this weekend, and well, they've had a lot to smile about. Nissan have had a lot to smile about in general, really, because it's a home weekend for that team. They've had the CEO here yesterday and put on a strong performance, starting from pole position for a second year here in Japan in succession. Unlucky to not take the victory yesterday, but I think given the circumstances, they really maximised their potential, and I think they've got a great opportunity going into the E-Prix here today. On the other side of the garage, a bit of a disappointing race for Norman Nato. Did you manage to make any inroads into what happened there for Norman James?
I didn't. He just dropped back. It was very strange. He had no pace. towards the end of the race. So yeah, bit of a strange one for Norman, and starting to look very difficult for him to match Oliver Rowland's performances.
Yeah, 15th he was at the checkered flag. Given that he started 3rd on the grid, that is a disappointing race for the Frenchman as Oliver Rowland comes across the timing line, 1:14.1. So not a bad lap time there for him. We're still a couple of seconds away from the quickest times that we saw in FP1 on Friday, but we're not really in the attack mode zone. So we're still circulating with 300 kilowatts and rear-wheel drive as opposed to all-wheel drive and 350. Looking here at Stoffel van Dorn, just making his way through turn 15. And just letting the Cooper Kiro go through there. Dan Ticktum just behind his teammate David Beckman. Super impressed with Dan Ticktum here yesterday. 5th place for him, his best finish of the season. Anyway, hold that thought for just a moment. Let's go down to Saunders in pit lane. Saunders, you're with Fred Bertrand from Mahindra.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, very difficult race yesterday, not just because of the conditions, but also because of the result when it came to the end with Edo's misfortune and now also a penalty for Nick de Vries.
Frustrating, yeah, definitely, because the performance is there. The drivers were doing a really good race and a really good job in conditions, as you said, which were really tricky, but probably able to secure a podium again, and that was the goal. But the race has decided a little bit differently. We did some small mistakes and pay it hard. That's part of the game. We just know where we have to progress. Execution is key, and we were not exactly there.
Can you give us any more information on the situation with Edo and what the issue was that caused him to not have a better result?
Well, probably a small bug in the way the attack mode was giving the power needed. So he didn't get the power for the full period of the attack mode. With that power, he was able to climb on the podium for sure. So it's really painful.
Like you say, though, still lots of positives in the performance going into today. Potentially another chance for a podium, 2nd of the season on the cards.
Yeah, full new day, to be honest. Different conditions, and let's see. But for us, it's still a very positive weekend in general. When we look at the way we are performing, it's still a lot of points because we scored 8. Penalty for Nick, we estimate, is a little bit harsh, but yeah, in general, it's still on our trend, scoring 10 points per race. We are there, and that's the goal. So let's not change the plan for the moment. For sure, we are creating a little bit of over-expectation, but we just need to stick to our own expectation initially. 10 points per race.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saunders. Thank you to Fred Bertrand from Mahindra. Missed opportunity for that team yesterday, as we spoke about earlier on, the penalty for Nick de Vries, and also Edo Mortara unlucky in the race. Software glitch, essentially, meaning that he wasn't able to use full attack mode.
Yeah, and he had 6 minutes of attack mode coming up to the end of the race. I mean, he was in the prime position there to climb onto the podium, as Fred mentioned. It was a bit disappointing to not see Edo deliver that, but as we can hear, it was a technical glitch and nothing to do with Edo.
Yeah, they can take some comfort in the strong performances that we've seen for them over the last couple of weekends. The pace is there, just need to be able to execute it and get the results that we know the team are able to do. And maybe today there is an opportunity that's at their door.
How is the car balance so far?
A bit oversteer.
Copy.
Especially with the hot tires.
Copy.
So Di Grassi complaining of oversteer. We saw that actually in Monaco a fortnight ago. That car looked particularly tail happy on traction, didn't it?
It did, and actually it was mainly from the initial turn in just before he was arriving at the apex. He was always having a little bit of oversteer, and that's a very tricky phase of the corner to actually carry speed. If you've got an imbalance there, just as you're arriving at the apex, you don't really know if the rear is going to hang on or not. It's the worst feeling for a driver.
What about Sebastian Buemi here, Katie, as well? Winner in Monaco a fortnight ago, 4th place yesterday. He seems like a man with a bit of fire in his belly at the moment.
Yeah, something's working for them, isn't it? The team were in great spirits yesterday. Obviously, they've had a bit of a run in the wet because their last win was in season 9 in the wet in London. So the team that seems to thrive under wet conditions. But yeah, I think it was actually interesting to hear though his radio in the last few laps to the team. He was saying that he sounded a bit frustrated that he wanted a bigger picture of the race because he felt like he could have played his race a bit differently. So to say to him a few races ago you'd be disappointed with 4th, I think he'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah, to bring your hand off, no doubt about it, given the run of form that Buemi's had over the last couple of seasons or so. This is run out of turn 2, down the drop into turn 3. Snap of oversteer there. They have reprofiled the entire first sector, including resurfacing out of turn 2 to turn 3. If you remember last year here, that was concrete, and it was a big drop there. The cars were actually getting airborne through there, which was causing some issues for the cars. Essentially, they were having some battery-related problems there with the impact.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but it also stresses that rear left tyre a huge amount. I mean, we can see it in that slow-mo, how much the rear left tyre is moving, how much temperature you're putting in, and it's...
I think DaCosta's got a problem here, James. He's going very slowly.
I think he's finding a gap to start his 350 kilowatt attack mode.
I beg your pardon.
He's in the traffic, and he saw the nice big gap behind him. I'm sure Florian got somebody in the team to inform him of that. And they're just creating a gap, and hopefully Antonio can launch a lap and we can see what pace he's got.
Well, there's so many blind corners here as well, and fast ones for that matter, especially in that final sector, that, you know, ends up being a bit like downtown Tokyo in rush hour, trying to find clear track time here.
Yeah, we can see Antonio now in his attack mode. He's really pushing on. He's trying to maximize his all-wheel drive.
Yep, going through turn 4, that's where the attack mode will be activated in the race.
His car balance actually looks very good. He doesn't have any of those snaps of oversteer. It looks very nice and composed. This looks like it should be a fast first sector.
Obviously, we've had a day's lost of dry running yesterday, given the deluge of weather that came in. How are the teams going to use the experience they gained from Friday and put that forward into today? Is yesterday have any relevance in terms of the setup for today at all?
None at all.
Yeah.
No relevance at all in the conditions that we saw yesterday for today. It's just something that they'll put that knowledge in their pocket for the next wet race and make sure that they understand as much as they can about their systems, tyre pressures, things like that. But no, in terms of today, it's all about the learnings that they had on Friday afternoon, double-checking those now in this session, and then building their knowledge base to make sure they can make the right decisions on the setup direction for the group qualifying phase.
Yeah, DaCosta's car looking nice and compliant as he comes out of the final corner. This will be the quickest lap time of the session, I'm sure, and he does go to the top of the pile with a 1:12.517. Team radio for Buemi here.
So same story, sectors 2 and 3 strong, sector 1 we're losing 4/10. So
it's the same story, it's the same story. It's really annoying, it's the same story over and over again. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, copy that, mate.
Front deployment seems to be a bit better, but
yeah,
no, I don't have the rears.
It's not.
I don't have the rears anymore.
So Buemi complaining about the rear balance of his car then. Is that tyre related, do you think?
Could be a little bit of both. It can also be differential related, because in the first sector where he's missing those 4/10, you've got really tight and twisty 90-degree left-hander, 90-degree right-hander, 90-degree right-hander, 180-degree left-hand. Now, in those tight corners, if the differential of the car really affects your balance, the amount of entry speed you can carry, the amount of minimum speed, and it's all about minimum speed in those corners to get the lap time.
So look here on board with Jake Dennis, just through turn 2, on the run down through 3.
A little kiss of the wall there.
Yeah, just exploring the limits and going beyond them. That's the good thing about practice. Let's have another look.
Is he going to look good? Oh, we missed it.
Close though, wasn't he?
That's
about the width of your wallet through there. He was
almost too close.
Well, Jake Dennis out for redemption here today. Whoa, big snap of oversteer through turns 10 and 11 there for Max Günther.
Big commitment on the brakes. I mean, he almost, I think he must have thought about aborting that one. It's quite impressive that he made the corner.
Yeah, he's not hanging about here, is Max Günther. He was an unlucky retirement from yesterday. How 12 months can change the complexion. Yesterday, of course, he was a retirement following a technical problem which actually brought out the red flag in the race. 12 months prior to that, he was racing for Maserati MSG and went and won the E-Prix. So he knows he's got good performance around this circuit. And how do you think he's going to use yesterday to try and bounce back today, Katie?
It's just a case of putting it behind him. I mean, he didn't miss any running time. Yes, well, he did, but not in these conditions, so that's a good thing. So I think that, you know, as James was saying earlier, we'll just be looking towards the free practice 1 setup that they had, and then trying to integrate that.
So late on the brakes going into there.
Looks fast though.
Yeah, full commitment. The problem is when you brake that late and you've got the... Let's see it from Max.
Feels like a wet setting. I've got cutting everywhere. I lose like 1 second just in acceleration. I go on power and there is no power. It's just TC.
Trying to make up the lap time on the brakes then. So when you can see the car moving around and sliding like that, you overheat the tyres, as we mentioned before, and then that's to your detriment. In the latter part of the lap, you're going to have less grip. But if he's missing out on the power as well, and so to explain a little bit more, when you go into the attack mode, you have traction control available to you. So the team can help you and manage your power deployment in your all-wheel drive. And that's different from when you're in the normal rear-wheel drive. And therefore, if you have the settings too tight, so too aggressive, too restrictive, you don't get the acceleration. You're not maximizing the acceleration of the all-wheel drive system.
Yeah, interesting point. We've just heard that Porsche are doing pit boost practice in this session, even though, of course, there's no pit boost in the race. Do you think they're just trying to optimise that procedure?
Quite smart, because we go straight from here to Shanghai and straight into another pit boost race.
I suppose there's no such thing as too much practice in those circumstances, is there?
No, and it does mean that if you think about, you know, we have very short practice sessions here, and if you've got a 40-minute practice session and you don't want to be wasting 1 or 2 of those minutes, maybe 4 if you want to do 2 of them, to practice your pit boost, it's much better to get it out of the way here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's a 34-second pit stop, and just making sure that everything is running as it should be. I know it sounds quite simple on paper, but there are a lot of variables that can change the course of that. So I guess getting as much practice in as possible can't be a bad thing. Whoa, that's a big moment for Bird going through the chicane as well.
They are really pushing it on the entry to that corner, aren't they?
I want to see an onboard of that, because I imagine if he didn't close his eyes, I will be amazed, because I certainly did here in the commentary box.
I was sure he was going off then.
Yeah, that was well recovered from Sam Bird.
But again, the same problem. You're going to overheat your tyres driving like that. It's not fast to complete the lap like that. It's better to have brake maybe 1 or 2 meters earlier, release the brake earlier, carry a little bit more speed, but in a smooth way. But the amount of entry speed he carried into there, and on the brakes, it looked like full commitment.
Sam quite disappointed with the result yesterday. No surprise at all. He was classified 14th after the penalties unravelled at the end of the race. Let's have another look going through that first sector. So that's on the that's on the run through turns 15 into the chicane though. Watch this. I bet you couldn't do that again if you tried.
That is some precision driving there from Sam Bird. Very, very impressive.
Ian James is being entertained by his drivers this weekend for sure, isn't he?
On the other side of the garage, Taylor Barnard continued to impress yesterday. He was all over the gearboxes of Oliver Rowland, Katie, right at the end of that race. Given the fact he was in the wall in FP1, that was a very impressive performance.
He was, and I think the moment, his stand-up moment for me in the race was his overtake around the outside in the same corner where he was obviously in the wall in free practice 1, and he made that move on Debris yesterday, and yeah, he had so much confidence to do that in the wet, and also it was a really wet line. He wasn't on the dry line as he took that move around the outside, so fair play to him.
Yeah, he always seems to bounce back, doesn't he, Taylor Barnard? Such is the joy of youth. You can just switch your brain off, reset, and go again. Looking at David Beckman going through that chicane here for Cooper Kiro. Obviously, we've seen a lot of commitment there for drivers here. Beckman, he struggled a bit this season, especially compared to teammate Tictum over the last couple of weekends. James, what do you make of watching this on board for the car? It doesn't look as quite as compliant as we've seen from others.
He doesn't seem to have the confidence to attack the corners, as we've just had some great examples from Max Günther and Sam Bird. He doesn't attack the corners quite hard enough. He seems like he's comfortable on the mid-corner and exit phase, but attacking the corners, he's just missing the confidence, and he's not willing to send the car in there deep, which you know, that's where the last bit of lap time comes.
Bit of a disappointing race for Jaguar yesterday with the retirement for Mitch Evans. 10th place at the end of the race as well for Nick Cassidy. Let's go down to Saunders, who's in pit lane, catching up with Jaguar TCS Racing Team Principal James Barker.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, James, we saw the result, or the ultimate penalty, come in overnight for Nick De Vries with that race-ending incident with Mitch Evans. A fair judgment, would you say?
Oh, slam dunk. I mean, really frustrating. I feel for Mitch. He's had so many races this year where, through no fault of his own or the team's, he hasn't had the result he deserved. Maybe a podium in Monaco, brake by wire failure in Jeddah, being taken out yesterday. So it's clear the car rejoining the racing line needs to kind of let the car on track take priority, and it's a big accident. It's destroyed a rear end. Just wasn't called for, to be really honest. So disappointing. I feel for Mitch. He was putting together a really good race.
So a big night for the mechanics.
Yeah, exactly. Big night, and yeah, another one that kind of got away. You know, so after not having qualifying yesterday, Mitch put himself in a great position and was looking really strong.
At the end of the race, I caught up with Nick, and he was mentioning that there was a setup change or a tyre change halfway through the race that made all the world of difference. So I imagine a lot of learnings, at least, to take from that into today. Chance for a better performance?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. Qualifying's key, right? And that's the critical thing for us, is to try and take that step in qualifying, because we've got fantastic race performance. You've seen us make huge gains in the race and that great podium for Nick in Monaco. So yeah, focus on a good qualifying. We didn't get that opportunity yesterday, and yeah, let's wait and see what we can do. And if we've got some work to do, our eyes will be focused on going forward and getting ourselves into another strong position.
And finally, just for that bit of James Barkley insight that we all love, seen a couple of pit boost practice going on down the pit lane. Is that just to make up for the lack of time in free practice sessions? So obviously we haven't got the pit boost in the race today.
To be honest, it's all about validation. We're all trying to make sure there's as much data as possible. It's still very early in its infancy. So the honest truth is we're all just doing these because it's important to make sure you're prepared. You've seen some teams when they haven't done that, and I think you saw the Andretti not doing their pit boost practice and they had a problem in the race, so in Monaco. So it's best to be prepared, as they say.
Thanks, James.
Thanks.
Thanks, James. Thanks to Saunders down in pit lane as well. Yep, disappointing day at the office eventually for Jaguar TCS Racing yesterday, and they will be hoping for a much stronger result here today. Of course, dry track time in free practice 3 now this morning, and going into qualifying. They need a strong result because they haven't had a win since the opening round of the season back in December. And as James was saying in that interview with Saunders a few moments ago, a lot of misfortune coming their way.
They've just really struggled to put it a whole weekend together, and it's something unlike Jaguar. They were so good at it in last year, and they've really struggled to nail that. They nail the free practice, nail the qualifying and the race, and we've seen them struggle in qualifying, which, as James Barker said, it's the key to getting the success, especially today on this tight and twisty circuit.
So why is that? Put some meat on the bones for me, James. Last year, like you say, they were unfathomable, really, in terms of their performance. They were just there every single weekend. 12 months later, they're not. What's going on?
I think there's a little bit of the fact that a lot of other teams have made a big step forwards, and so it's kind of created a much more equal playing field. And then you've also got the fact that if you go and try new things and you're pushing innovation, which we are all trying to do here in this Formula E Championship, you will undoubtedly make some good and bad choices. And I think they're just trying to figure out which ones are the right ones that they've made with their updates to their powertrain for this year, which ones maybe they need to come back on, and how to get the correct balance from their car.
Well, they always say form is temporary and class is permanent, so I'm sure they will be rising to the top once they've figured out what's going on. Either way, they're 2 drivers not where they want to be in the championship. Nick Cassidy down in 13th, Mitch Evans in 15th. I know we're at the halfway stage of the season now, but championship challenge is pretty much done and dusted at this point, is it not?
Well, they can still finish second, but with Oliver Rowland having that many points, I think it's going to be hugely challenging for anyone to catch him.
Just under 15 minutes to go then in free practice 3 here in Tokyo. We're watching Sam Bird in the pit lane, currently 8th quickest for the Briton. His teammate Taylor Barnard a bit further up the road in 3rd. So now we're coming into the latter stages of this session. I imagine we're going to see drivers starting to push on with their attack mode laps and do some qualifying prep in this session. Let's have a look at Jake Dennis, who gets very close to our camera on the exit of turn 2 into turn 3. Not the first time we've seen that, and even closer to the wall that time around.
I mean, I don't know how much lap time there is in that, but
it looks good.
Definitely no more lap time, that's for sure.
Dan Ticktum as well, on the ragged edge of adhesion, coming through turn 16. He was fastest overall in the 2nd sector, personal best as well, earlier on in the lap in the 1st sector. Where does it promote the Briton? It goes to 3rd quickest as he comes across the timing line.
He's a man knocking on a podium, isn't he? He's going to get there sometime soon, I have a feeling. He was a great performance yesterday, top 5, and he's starting to look so comfortable in that car.
Okay, so P3, 3 tenths, 2 tenths sector 1, best sector 2, and 1 tenth sector 3.
Well, let's be fair, there was a lot of uncertainty for that outfit going into the winter. ERT, as they were formerly known, and Neo before that, and the team decided to look for some new investment going into this season, changing powertrains from running their own unit to a customer one, and it all came about very late in the day, and Ticktum was sort of not, it wasn't really decided where the driver lineup was going to be. We thought that Ticktum was going to stay on, but really looking at the results, he was outshone by Sete Camera on a couple of occasions last year when the team were known as ERT. This year, he seems to just be a driver reborn, and that confidence is really now starting to come through along with those results, Katie.
It is, and he's working really hard within the team, I think beyond his role as well. yeah, he's trying to lead the way. He's trying to get involved with everything. I think he's been a bit frustrated as well this year, it's fair to say, with some things. Obviously, the mistake that happened in the last qualifying when he wasn't able to get into the 350 kilowatt stages in the duels through, you know, an internal mistake in the team. And I think he's probably taking a lot of the weight on his shoulders to try and carry some good results here. But it will come. It's with everything, you know, a new team. You look at the standard here. You look at how long these teams have been racing. If you've got new personnel, if you've got a new team trying to lead the way in terms of learning how to run a Formula E race, it's very different to just putting one lap pace together as well. So it's part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Ticktum's doing a great job carrying the team, and there's a lot for that team to progress, as you said, with a new powertrain partner with Porsche, and trying to maximise that, trying to tune all of the systems to a completely new system is so difficult, and I think it's great that Dan's learning all of that.
On the other side of the garage, though, you've got David Beckman there. I don't wish to sound unkind to David because he's a very talented driver in his own right, but he's not extracting the same results as Ticktum is in that car. Do you think that's got to be a hindrance, surely, for the team in terms of their rate of progression? It's
a big, difficult conversation I think the team are going to have, because ultimately, if you don't have two drivers pushing at the front, and you know, I mean, it's a second gap at the moment that we can see in this session. It becomes a hindrance because the person who's 1 second off, or your teammate, he's going to really struggle and he can't contribute in the same way. And if you can't contribute, you're not driving the team forwards, you're actually a hindrance.
Let's have a look at Ticktum then coming through turn 16. You see there a snap of oversteer through there, just about gathers it up all okay. Into the final chicane, a little bit wide on the first apex, but gathers it all up quite nicely and gets a nice blast onto the start-finish straight. Ticktum currently third quickest in this session as we head into the final 10 minutes. It's Pascal Wehrlein that leads the way at the moment, and good to touch on him because he just didn't seem to be at the races at all yesterday. He didn't start very high up on the grid due to free practice 2, and then we didn't really see him making much of an impression.
I guess he got out of the other side of the bed this morning, because the guy who turned up yesterday, or it was his twin brother, doesn't seem to be the same driver that we've got in that car this morning.
No, very impressive performance so far. The quickest lap time that we've seen of the weekend by just over a tenth of a second from Pascal Wehrlein. Sits in front of Norman Nato. So let's see whether the German driver can get that performance out of the car, as he knows he can do. Where's his teammates at the moment? Da Costa's 5th fastest, isn't he?
So let's see what Mitch Evans has got. He's in the all-wheel drive attack mode, 350 kilowatts. Seems fully committed. The first part of the lap looked like he was struggling a little bit with the front end of the car.
It's interesting to see Oliver Rowland, though, down in 18th. It doesn't look like he's put any laps together yet this morning.
And just having a look at his run plan at the moment, he's not done an attack mode lap at the moment, so yeah, I wonder whether there's something to come from him at the end of the session.
Obviously focusing on the 300 kilowatt laps.
The most important part is to get through into the duels, and I think Oliver earlier on this weekend did an interview where he said he just wants to get to the duels, and you only get there by nailing the 300 kilowatt rear wheel drive lap. So maybe he's focusing on that. He knows he's got the performance. We've seen it all year long when he goes to the attack mode. So yeah, maybe he's just focusing on his car balance for the group phase of qualifying.
Well, there's a lot more emphasis on qualifying this year now, isn't there, with the attack mode being quite as powerful as it is. Seldom do we see drivers. I know we saw it with Mitch Evans in the first race of the season in Sao Paulo, coming from the back of the grid to the start, but since then, you know, aside from the pit boost races, it's not been quite as simple.
Okay, you should have 350. Yeah, I can see that. Good.
Mortara grateful to get 350 kilowatts of power, because that was what he was denied in the latter stages of the E-Prix yesterday. Ultimately, it dropped him down to 6th on the checkered flag.
Da Costa has backed off. You're in good space, mate.
So he's got a nice bit of clear track in front of him as well here, Mortara.
This is great to see Edo's lines. He's been so quick here. He was on the podium last year, or on the front row, sorry, last year, on the front row yesterday. He loves this place, and Mahindra seems to be in full resurgence.
Yeah, it really is great to see. I'm loving the resurgence of Mahindra. They're a fantastic team in Formula E. They've been here since day one, and now, after a couple of challenging seasons, they are starting to reap the rewards of a lot of internal changes that have gone on within that outfit over the last couple of years, and a lot of restructuring.
Yeah, Fred Bertrand has really led the team very well the last couple of years. He's been bringing in key people and shaping the team that is delivering the results at the moment.
I was going to say, I think we were in Sao Paulo and you said to us all, definitely watch Mahindra this year because they've got my old engineer and I know what he's capable of. So you predicted this one.
No, Fred's built a very strong team there, and there's some very talented people inside that team.
Yeah, Mortara 6th quickest at the moment. Teammate Nick de Vries only a tenth of a second behind the Swiss driver at the moment. There is Nick de Vries in the garage as it stands for now, and I wonder what sort of performance that team are going to be able to put on here today. Nick de Vries will be out for a stronger result following that penalty that he received in the race yesterday. He was classified in the points, but after the penalty, he was eventually classified as 11th after it had all worked out. Now, on the other side of the Maserati MSG garage, you've got Jake Hughes, and Jake has had a tricky couple of weekends, to put it mildly. Monaco, no points for him on the board, while Stoffel was able to get in the points on 2 occasions. Yesterday, Hughes came across the timing line down in 19th, yeah. And again, just another challenging race for the Briton. What's going on there?
I mean, he doesn't seem to have confidence on the brakes, but that's not a good excuse when your teammate does. And, you know, we saw Stoffel win the race yesterday. Yes, he got very lucky, but there was still quite a big split between the performance of the 2 cars. He really needs to find some form. Otherwise, it's going to be a big challenge for him to hold on to his seat, I think.
Well, Taylor Barnard and Sam Bird currently 4th and 10th quickest for Neon McLaren. Let's go down to the pit lane, catch up with the team principal, Ian James.
Ian James, if there's 2 things that are seemingly guaranteed in the championship this season, is a battle between Oliver Rowland and Taylor Barnard getting close to a podium, or on a podium.
Yeah, I mean, we saw an epic battle yesterday, which is fantastic. I'm glad you said there's something guaranteed in Formula E, because I don't think there's anything guaranteed in Formula E. But no, the 2 of them, I think, are having a great battle this season when they're together on the track. But you can see there's a huge amount of respect between the 2 drivers as well. And yesterday is one of those moments where, as a team, you're sort of trying to understand whether we need to intervene or say something or just let them get on with it. And with those 2, I trust them implicitly, so we just let them get on with it.
It worked out, another podium for young Taylor. It just feels that we say it every race weekend that top step win is finally, it's close to coming. It feels like it's just on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, it would be phenomenal, and it will come. There's no doubt about it. The sooner the better for us as a team, and I think for Taylor as well. But yeah, he's got what it takes, and I'm excited to see what he can deliver today.
I imagine today would be a good place to start to get that elusive top step, also because that would definitely get Taylor back in the top 3 in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, our focus is really genuinely on just getting as many points as we can, obviously, with both cars. And consistency, as we know in this championship, is key. So we'll be taking it step by step as we go through the day, making sure that we've got the right setup for quali now, and then just take it from there.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Thanks to Ian, thanks to Saunders down in pit lane. Yeah, good to hear about the plan for Neon McLaren here this weekend. Sam Bird currently 12th quickest and would love to get a strong result. Hasn't been on the podium since he won in Sao Paulo back in March last year. When you look at what Taylor Barnard's been doing on the other side of the garage, we know the performance is there. We know that Bird has got the experience, he's got the potential to deliver, but needs to put the whole thing together.
Yeah, it's becoming very difficult for him to put it together, and I think his teammate is doing a phenomenal job. I mean, he's really been a sensation this year, Taylor Barnard, and he just keeps on delivering and delivering and delivering, and that was a big drift from none other than Dan Ticktum, full Tokyo drift.
Yeah, he knows how to slide a Formula E car. We've seen that over the course of the last few seasons. He goes across the line, does lose a bit of time in that final sector, but he is certainly leaving nothing on the table. Let's have another look at it through in towards turn 15, this is.
There's a little bump here just at the apex when you're braking, and he's just lost the rear. He's just tried to take a couple of meters too late on the brakes. Good to find out in this session. His actual first sector and second sector, he was on to go P1. So the lap times there, he knows that if he can just calm that down a little bit and probably brake a little bit earlier, carry a little bit more speed around the corner, not lose the rear of the car, he'll be able to deliver a great performance, I think, when we get to the qualifying phase.
Speaking of delivering a great performance, Jake Hughes seems to be able to do so now.
He was listening to you.
Must have done, must have done. Third quickest he goes towards the end of free practice 3, and a very welcome result that will be for the Briton here, especially given his teammate winning yesterday. Obviously did a bit of setup change overnight for Jake, and seems to be working quite nicely. That'll give him a bit of confidence going into qualifying in about an hour and a half's time here this morning.
It's not the normal order that we'd see at the front.
Okay, biggest loss on 300 is sector 1.
So Evans there just being told that his biggest sector time loss is down in sector 1, which is the tight and twisty part of the track. You know, you're completely right there, James, actually. I mean, you've got some big hitters down there. You've got yesterday's winner, Stoffel van Dorn, in 17th place. Nick Cassidy is mired down there. Oliver Rowland's last of the pile now as a result of some improvements over the last couple of moments.
Sebastian Buemi, Monaco race winner. It's a bit of a jumbled up order at the moment that we're seeing.
So what do you think that's down to? Do you think that's just maybe focusing on different run plans going into qualifying, or different, you know, maybe not able to get the right setup after the wet track time we had yesterday?
There could be a little bit of that. I mean, we see that, you know, Pascal Wehrlein fastest, P1, he looks class of the field today. Struggled all day yesterday, barely saw him. So it could be some drivers were much more comfortable in the wet, and now that we've got a dry session, they're struggling a little bit to find that small window that these cars have to get the peak performance out of them.
Right smile on the face there of Florian Modlinger, because Wehrlein has just set another lap time within 17 thousandths of his quickest. I mean, consistency is important in Formula E, and that was very consistent as Beckman was in the wall through the exit of turn 9.
Yeah, it's just, car's fine, but in right-hand corners it's very oversteering, so especially like the second last corner.
I think that was after he hit the wall or before?
One would assume after. But yeah, not a good end to the session there for David Beckman. Hopefully he's not done any damage to one of the drive shafts when he clobbered into the back of it.
No, but he's really struggling. I mean, he's a second a lap off of his teammate, and that's not where you need to be.
Well, really fine margins here, Katie, in Formula E. We've got 19 drivers within a second. Yesterday, the gaps were way more pronounced in the wet conditions. This is a bit more like it, isn't it?
It's more like what we're used to seeing, I think, from qualifying. Qualifying, for me, is one of the most exciting parts of the weekend, when you get into the dual stages and you always see, you know, a couple of tenths off and you're nowhere. So they know how fine the margin is. And, yeah, I think they're all gearing up for that now.
So one of the things we're seeing now is all the guys trying to launch, at the end of this session, a 300 kilowatt lap. So this is what the power mode that you're going to be in for the group phase. Now they want to do that so they have all their reference points fresh in their mind. They know exactly where they're going to brake when they go out there for that first lap in the group phase of qualifying.
Johan Aim, the race engineer for Oliver Rowland, just watching on, his man down in 22nd and last place at the current point in this session. But he's got one final flying lap as the checkered flag now comes out. He's done no attack mode laps at all in this session, has Oliver Rowland, so clearly focusing on that dual performance as he threads his way through turn 9. He's got a fair amount of traffic up the road, though, to contend with. Into the chicane, we've seen quite a few drivers getting close to the limit. He's got an Envision right in front of him there as well. Just manages to dispatch of that one, then past the Andretti.
It's interesting that he's not even done one. You'd think, you know, going in...
Oh, he's deep into 15. He's had to abort the lap here as well. Gets it rotated round. But just a bit too much commitment from Oliver Rowland and not able to slow the car down enough through into that left-hander. So there will be no improvement from the Briton going into qualifying, at least in terms of his classification. Let's have another look at it going through here. So just the rear steps out, going into that corner, and he gets it rotated around quite nicely.
That's a man with confidence to flick the car around there.
Yeah, let's have another look. See him going in, rears locking, and he realises quite quickly that he's not going to be able to get that car into the corner. So just spins it round, and unfortunately the lap is gone. And any chance of improvement at the end of this session denied for Oliver Rowland. Let's have a look here also at Da Costa coming through 16 as well. Not the first driver we've seen having a moment going through there. I'm sure not the last either.
The yellow flag out.
Yeah, it's the end of the session though, so I wonder if someone's just slowing down at the end of it, waiting to do their practice start. It's down at turns 17 and 18. I don't think it's too much of a cause of concern. According to our driver tracker that we've got in the commentary box, nobody stopped on the circuit, so I wonder if that's just a matter of precaution. Either way, Pascal Wehrlein ending free practice 3 as the quickest man. We said he was absolutely nowhere yesterday at all. Didn't make much of an impression on the race. What a difference a day makes.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, said he didn't feature in yesterday's race really at all in any of the wet sessions, and as soon as it's dry, he's flying.
Okay,
we need to look a little bit after the SOC. We will need to look a little bit after the SOC, so try to be mindful there. And we prepare for launch.
So he's talking about SOC, their state of charge. What's that in reference to, James?
Just to make sure he's got enough to do the full launch. Now they all get to do a practice start after the checkered flag. You need to have a certain amount of charge left to do a full 350 kilowatt all-wheel drive launch off the line, which where we see these cars accelerate unbelievably fast. And he just needs to make sure that he's got enough state of charge to be able to do that.
Got a bit of dust offline, actually, for some of these drivers, isn't there? Just looking at it.
Very different day to yesterday, isn't
it? It certainly is. Yeah, yesterday you needed some swimming goggles and some armbands to navigate your way around this circuit in free practice. Let's have a look at these practice starts then as we watch driver's eye with Verline.
So grip 3.25 LST, 5 launch from the left-hand side.
Yeah, so just looking there at Verline making his practice start. A few other drivers lining up for this one. This will be the first time we've got an all-wheel drive start in dry conditions for the E3 this afternoon. Slightly shorter, by the way, in terms of race duration. Yesterday we were 35 laps with the pit boost. Today we are 32 laps, so a little bit shorter in race duration. That's the same distance as we had here last year as well. So we're riding on board here with Maximilian Günther for DS Penske. We're hoping to catch up with him on this slowdown lap, James.
Yeah, I think we need to wait for him to launch his lap, and then I'm going to try and have a little word with him and see if he can talk us around this track.
It'd be quite interesting if you decided to speak to him during that launch procedure. I don't think you thank you for that at all.
I'll wait a second.
Let's have a look at it from the driver's eye view then. You can see just how fast these cars are able to accelerate. In the launch procedure, they've got all-wheel drive, but they only have 300 kilowatts of power. But you can see just how quickly they're able to pull away from the lights. That's on the clean side of the grid as well, on the traditional racing line.
Max, it's James in the commentary booth. Can you give us a quick little talk around this tight and twisty Tokyo lap?
Yeah, hi James. Yeah, cool track here. Very technical, especially Sector 1, where we are right now. Many low-speed corners. Important to have good rotation, good traction. Now going to a faster section of the track. And yeah, important to have good confidence here on the braking. So yeah, really technical here again. Combined brakings. 215. And now, yeah, very technical last part of the track again.
Box, Max.
Copy, box.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for that chat.
Well, good to hear.
Right, so that is the end now. That's gone through us heading into the pit lane now from finishing the practice starts. Thank you for watching here for the Formula E FP3 here in Tokyo. Please join us here on JB Motorsports for the remaining streams that we have here, and it's now Sunday, so today, and it's a very long weekend still yet ahead of us, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.